All right, Im2 crew, we're going to talk about equations of circles and how to graph circles on a coordinate plane. So before we get started, just some review points here. So the definition of the radius, it's going to play an important part in our equations, is the distance from the center of a circle to the point on the edge of the circle, which is highlighted in our diagram here. So CD would be the radius. Now the diameter is the distance from a point on the edge of a circle to another point on the edge of a circle through the center, and that's the key. Diameter goes from one end of the circle to the other, but it must go through the center. So just like that. All right, so AB would be the diameter. Now, if we take a peek at the definition of the circle, when we have the center of the circle and we are graphing, the center of the circle is going to be a point. And that point is going to be called H, K. So if you recall graphing, when we graph a point, our first guys are X coordinate, our second guys are Y coordinate. But when we're dealing with the circle, the number is not called X, it's now called H and K. So this is going to be our point when we graph, H and K. Okay, and this will be the center of the circle, which is, in this example, C. All right, let's move on. So a little bit of review there. Okay, so let's talk about a type of equation of a circle. This type of equation is called the standard form equation of a circle, which is presented here. It's x minus h parentheses squared plus y minus k parentheses squared equals 2r squared. And recall, r is just the radius. So as you look at this, we also want to remember that h and k, which can be found here and here, they make up our center of the circle. Okay, so when you have standard form of the equation of a circle, it's really easy to find the center, and then we got to do a little bit of math, but we can find the radius. And I'm going to show you how this works. So let's do example A. Our job is to identify the center of the circle from this equation, and then the radius of the circle from this equation. So let's go ahead and do it. So our center is H and K. So if you look at our equation, our H is the number that adds or subtracts to the X. Okay? So this number 3 is going to give me my H. But we got to do something to find it. When we find the center, our H coordinate, we're going to switch the sign. So instead of positive 3, it becomes negative 3. Okay? Now for our K is a number that adds or subtracts to our Y inside parentheses. And to find the K, we take this number and we switch the sign. So it's negative 2 in the equation, but it's positive 2 in our point. So we have just found the center of the circle from our equation. Now to find the radius. The radius is just almost as simple. Keeping in mind, this number here is actually the radius after we raised it to the second power. So 25 is the radius, but we raised it to the second power. So we have to undo the second power. So to find the radius, it's very simple. We're going to square root our answer here of 25. So we square root, and that will give us our radius. So what number multiplied to itself gives me 25? And that number is 5. So we just found the center and now the radius. Okay, let's try example B. So the center of the circle again, we want our H and our K here. H, K. We look at our equation. The number adding or subtracting to the X is our H. Switch the sign, so it's 4. The number adding or subtracting to our Y, switch the sign. That is -7. To find our radius, recall that this is our radius after we raise it to the second power. So to undo the second power, we are going to square root it. So the square root of 64, our radius is 8. All right, one more example. Our center. So we look here. What number is adding and subtracting to our X? Notice there's no parentheses here. So what we have to understand in this situation, when we don't have a number adding and subtracting to the X, this is really X plus 0 squared. Okay? So in this case, X squared is really the number that I'm adding to it is 0. But X plus 0, we don't have to write the 0, so that's why it turns into X squared. So X plus 0 squared is the same as saying X squared. So our H value is actually 0. And then the number adding and subtracting to our Y, in this case is -5, but we switch the sign to +5. So there is our center. And then our radius is basically what number did I square to get 4? So if you think about it, the number that I squared to get 4 was 2. So 2 is my radius. Okay. All right. So example D, let's just do this real quick. So our center is going to be, notice, there is no number adding and subtracting to the X. There is no number adding and subtracting to the Y, which means the numbers that we're adding and subtracting are 0, 0. Our radius is, here we find it by undoing the power of 2. To undo the power of 2, we square root. The square root of 16 is 4. Okay guys, so now let's graph an equation of the circle. Here's our steps. First step we want to do is make sure we have the standard form of the equation of our circle. So it looks like this. Okay? So let's do this as we do example E. So if you look, example E, we already have standard form of the equation. Step 1 is done. Step 2, I want to find the center, H and K. So H and K are found by the number adding with the X and the number adding or subtracting with the Y. We just switch the sign. So my H is going to be 3 and my K is going to be 1. Okay, so H, K, that's my center. And then my radius can be found by taking the square root of your answer, 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, that is step 2. Now we want to plot these points. So step 3, we want to plot H and K as our center. So 3, 1, 3, 1, Okay, there's our center. And then we're going to use the radius to plot 4 other points. Okay, so we know the radius is 3, which means I have to go 3 jumps away from the center to plot 1 point. So we're going to go 3 jumps away from the center. That's a definition of radius. 1, 2, 3. Okay, when I do that, I get 1 point here. So that's 1 point. I need 3 more. So we're going to jump 3 points away from the center in this direction. Here, we're going to jump 3 points in this direction. That's there. And then 1 more dot. 1, 2, 3. And that gives me that. So you should have a total of 5 points. 4 of them represent the edge of the circle. We did that by doing a radius up, down, left, and right from the center. And now we're going to do our best job to connect these outside points into a shape of a circle. So there's a rough graph of our circle. All right, let's try the next one. Our center here for this equation, step 1, I have standard form. My h value is -2. My k value is going to be 0 because there's nothing adding or subtracting to the y, so 0. And then my radius is the square root of 36. So the square root of 36 is 6. So now let's plot these points. -2, 0 is here. And then we're going to plot the 4 other points. So we're going to use 6 jumps this time because that's our radius. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And put a dot. And then 6 jumps up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 jumps to the left. And 6 jumps down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that we have all 5 dots, we connect the outside dots like a circle. Okay, ugly circle, but you get the idea. One more example. Let's go h and k. H is going to be -4, k is going to be -3, and my radius is the square root of 1. So the square root of 1 is actually just 1. Plot the points. So center first is -4, -3, and then we have a radius of 1, so we need 4 more dots using that radius. So 1 jump away. So 1 jump away, 1 jump away, 1 jump away, 1 jump away. And there's our circle. Cool. And that's how you graph a circle when you have the standard equation. Now, if we can graph with the equation, we can work backwards. What we want to do is look at this circle and we want to create the equation. So think of it this way. We need to fill in some blanks. Okay, so our equation always has this. Okay, and we need to fill in some blanks here. Fill in 1 blank, 2 blanks, and 3 blanks. All right, so how would I fill this in? We just have to remember that this blank here is our H and our K, and we get our H and our K from the center of our circle. So if you look, my h and k will come from the center point. So the center of the circle, in this case, is the point 2, comma, the point is -1, comma, 2. This is now my h, and this is my k. But when we plug it in, just like we did when we graphed, when we plug this guy in, we want to switch the sign. So instead of -1 for h, it's going to be +1. So +1. And then the k goes with the y. So instead of +2 for k, we switch the sign in equation form. And that gives me -2. And then this last dot here is our radius. And whatever radius we get, we're going to raise it to the second power. So let's find our radius. To find the radius, it's the distance from the center to any edge of the circle. So we can use this one. We notice it's 2. All right. Or if you don't like to use that side, we could go from the center here. That's also 2. So again, any distance from the center to the edge, preferably a left or right distance or up or down distance, okay? And the reason I know it's 2, because if you jump from the center to the edge, it's 1, 2 jumps, okay? Your distance will always be positive. So that means my radius is actually going to be 2 squared. So my r is 2, and then when I square it, I get 4. So I now have my equation of the circle. It's x plus 1 squared plus y minus 2 squared equal to 4. And that is your equation of the circle. Let's go ahead and try this one. So x, fill in a blank, plus y, fill in a blank, equals our radius squared. So we want to fill in this blank as well. Okay. So the blanks we're filling in, again, is h, k, and radius squared. All right, so let's find our h and k. So our h and k comes from the center. Our center is 1, comma, 0. Here's our h, here's our k. Let's plug those in by switching signs. So instead of +1 for h, it's going to be -1 in the equation. Okay, and then this one is going to be 0, and it doesn't matter what sign you put for 0. So we'll just put +0. And then we find our radius. Our radius is the distance from the center to any edge. So I'll just use this edge here. So that is 1, 2, 3. So our radius is 3. So now we're going to go ahead and do 3 squared, and that's going to give me 9. Okay, so let's clean up our equation. X minus 1 is just x minus 1. We can't do any math there. Plus y plus 0 is just going to give me y. We don't need the 0. So that's going to give me y, and then parentheses are gone because we don't need them. Equal to 9. Okay, and that's how you write the equation from a graph.